Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into one of the weirdest quirks of the human mind. And it all comes down to its very strange, kind of backward relationship with one tiny three-letter word, not. It's a word that makes our brains do some seriously peculiar gymnastics.
You've all heard this one, right? If I say to you, right now, don't think of a pink elephant. What just happened? Boom! A big pink elephant just marched right into your brain. The crazy thing is, this isn't just some little mental hiccup. It's something that happens to literally everyone. But why? Why does telling our brain not to do something seem to be the fastest way to make it do exactly that?
You know, this whole paradox, it's so much more than a party trick. It actually points to a really deep question. How does our brain even handle the idea of negation? How does it process an instruction to cancel out a concept that it just heard a split second ago? Well, that's the mystery we're going to unpack today.
To crack this case, we're going to look at a really clever study from 2008 by Heather Ferguson and her team. They designed this brilliant experiment to figure out what is really going on inside our heads when we hear the word not. And the key to unlocking this whole mystery? Believe it or not, it was a very unusual, completely hypothetical cat.
This was the simple, yet genius premise they gave to people in the study. Just listen to that sentence. If cats were not carnivores. Right away, this one little sentence throws a wrench in the works. It creates this brand new, temporary rule that goes against everything we know to be true. I mean, we all know cats are carnivores. They eat meat. So what on earth happens inside the brain when it's told to just ignore that basic fact?
So here's what the scientists did next. They presented a choice. In this new, make-believe world where cats are not carnivores, what do you feed them? A bowl of carrots or a bowl of fish? Now, the carrots, they totally fit the new rule, right? But the fish, well, the fish fits with a lifetime of real-world knowledge. This is the perfect setup to create some tension and see which idea the brain latches onto first.
Okay, so this experiment was actually designed to put two competing theories to the test. You can think of them as the two main suspects in our little cognitive investigation. When the brain hears not, does it just block out the idea, or is there something way more complicated going on under the hood?
All right, let's meet our two suspects. On one hand, you have theory number one, called the narrow view. This idea suggests that when you hear not carnivore, your brain just puts a big red X over the whole concept. Anything related to it, like fish, suddenly becomes confusing. But then you have theory number two, the search for alternatives idea, and this one is way more interesting. It says the brain actually has a two-step process. First, it has to process reality, the fact that cats are carnivores, and only then does it start the harder work of looking for something else.
So to figure out which theory was right, the scientists basically had to eavesdrop on the brain's private internal conversation. And to do that, they brought in some seriously high-tech forensic tools that can track our thoughts in real time, right down to the millisecond.
Let's take a look at the toolkit they used. First up, we've got ERPs, which measure brainwaves. They were looking for a very specific brainwave called the N400. The easiest way to think about the N400 is as the brain's mental surprise signal. It spikes anytime the brain sees something that just doesn't make sense. Second, they used eye tracking to see exactly where people were looking and for how long. They were especially interested in something called regressions, which is basically a cognitive double-take. You know, when your eyes have to jump back and reread something because it didn't quite compute.
Okay, the investigation is over, and the evidence is in. And by combining these two powerful techniques, the researchers uncovered this fascinating story of two totally different reactions. A gut reaction that happens instantly, and then a much slower, more deliberate reaction that happens a moment later.
So let's look at the first piece of evidence, the brain's immediate, split-second response, measured by that N400 surprise signal. The very instant it read the words carrots or fish, what did the brain really think?
The results here were, wow. They were immediate and crystal clear. When people read the word carrots, their brain's surprise signal went completely off the charts, a huge spike. But when they read fish, barely a blip. So what does that tell us? In that first fraction of a second, the brain completely and totally ignored the word not. It defaulted straight to reality, which says, cats eat fish. Carrots? That's a huge surprise.
But hold on, because that's only half the story. That initial surprise, that's just step one. What happens a few milliseconds later? This is where that eye-tracking data, the cognitive double-take, comes into play.
And get this,
Just a moment later, the story completely flipped. The eye tracking showed that people's eyes actually spent more time on the word fish. They kept jumping back to it, doing that little cognitive double take. And this is step 2 in action. The brain's slower, more logical system finally caught up and went, wait a minute, the rule was not carnivores. Fish doesn't fit the new rule.
So here's the absolute crucial point. Our brains handle the word not in a very clear 2-step process. Step 1, it completely ignores the not and processes the statement as if it were true, checking it against everything it knows about the world. That's our fast, automatic gut reaction system. It's only after that initial check that our slower, more effortful system kicks in to actually apply the not and adjust its understanding. The bottom line is, reality always gets the first word.
Now, this isn't just some weird thing that happens in a lab. This 2-step process has huge implications for our daily lives, for how we communicate, how we learn, even how we form our beliefs. Understanding that the brain has to process the positive idea before it can process the negative, well, that can change everything.
So let's just do a quick recap of the big takeaways here. First, understanding not is not a simple one-shot deal. It's a complex 2-stage mental workout. Second, our brains are fundamentally wired to process the positive meaning of a sentence first, even if it has a big not sign in front of it. Third, what we already know about the real world is incredibly powerful. It's our brain's default setting. And finally, overriding that default setting to really understand a negated idea takes extra time and real cognitive effort.
And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. If we know that our brains automatically process the positive in every negative sentence, I mean, think about it. Telling someone don't be late first plants the idea of being late. Saying don't worry first brings the concept of worry to mind. Knowing that, how does it change the way you might choose your words, or even the way you listen to others? It's a fascinating question to think about.